there, I'm Chip Brierre, and you are tuned in to the inaugural episode of Washington football team's unfiltered show, The Beat, where each week I will host a panel of journalists that know this team best. And each week we will bring you the biggest storylines to get you ready for game day on Sundays. This week, it's the Eagles versus the Washington football team. And to kick it off, we have a star-studded lineup, starting it off with Julie Donaldson, Senior Vice President of Media and Content for the Washington football team. She is the highest-ranking female in the organization and the first female in the NFL to be in the broadcast booth full-time. We also have Rhiannon Walker of The Athletic covering the Washington football team beat. She wrote a preview for the 2020 season recently. It's a great read. And from ESPN, NFL reporter Sal Paolantonio covering the Philadelphia Eagles. And you can catch him this weekend as well as host of the NFL Matchup Show on ESPN at 4 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. Guys, welcome into the show. I'm kind of shaking right now. There's a lot of great faces, a lot of great voices, but we've got an NFL season. It kicked off with the Chiefs and the Texans on Thursday night. A great showing. And considering where we were, COVID-19, the pandemic broke out in March. A lot of people thought we were going to have football, and now here we are. It's being played. Sal, let's start with you since you're the veteran here. What did you think of the chances of there being football in the COVID-19 pandemic when it all began?
Well, when it all began, when we went to the NFL draft virtually and they canceled the events in Las Vegas, of course, everybody thought, well, how in the world are they going to do this? And then when they decided not to have a bubble like the NBA and the NHL, a lot of people were skeptical, but you have to really give a lot of credit, Chip, I think, to the NFL offices, particularly people like Troy Vincent, who worked behind the scenes, a vice president for game operations, and the NFLPA. Let's not forget, the NFLPA pushed the league to have daily testing, COVID testing, for all personnel in all 32 sites. And it has been remarkable what they have achieved. That's put the pressure on the players and the coaches and staff to make sure that their life is clean so that they don't have a problem with their team. And, the last round of testing that we have results for, from August 30th to September 5th, over 40,000 tests. Only one player tested positive, 7 others. Staff members did as well, but that's a very, very low percentage, which means players were told at the beginning of training camp, look, if you do the right thing in August, we'll have football in September.
An incredible number. My jaw dropped when I saw that number on social media. Julie, you've been a part of the organization and seeing how those protocols have been enacted. You yourself have had to go through them. How has the team been responding to these, and how comfortable do they feel to take the field on Sunday?
If you ask some players, they'll say, yeah, we kind of get tired of having to go and get tested every single day, but they understand the magnitude of what it's going to take to get this season up and running. And not just for week one. You have to get a whole season in. And yes, they can expand it. They can go a little bit further if they have to, but that is not part of the plan. So whatever has to be done, they understand that. And then for the Washington football team, there's a different layer to this because head coach Ron Rivera was diagnosed with squamous cell carcinoma. And he challenged his players. He said, you know what? I need you guys to be extra careful. We already challenged you to make sure the game goes off, but we need you to go to that extra step because his health is going to be compromised and he needs them to step up for him. The players have heard him. I mean, there have not been positive tests here. I go every week. It's something you look at and you have to do your due diligence to be responsible so this can go on.
Rhiannon, you've been seeing it out there in person. You've seen Ron Rivera on the practice field. He missed practice on Tuesday, going to get treatments for that lymph node cancer. How do you feel he has been so far with those protocols and how the players have worked and how you feel the protocols have gone for you covering the team?
Well, I feel like Ron Rivera has taken it obviously very seriously. One of the first things that we talked to him about was how do you feel coaching under these sets of circumstances? And even something as it's personal as the fact that Andy Reid, the person who gave him his first NFL head coaching job, they're being so careful with a lot of the older coaching in the NFL because of the fact that it's something that does affect that particular age group. And he pointed that out and saying, it's all about the players. It's all about us as a society and as a group taking this seriously and having discipline. If you have discipline, then there will be football. But if there is no discipline, there will be no football because there will be more of an outbreak. But I feel like a lot of the players that follow the coach's lead and followed a lot of coaching staff lead, which extends even to the football field. And they have taken this very seriously. They have had to make some concessions. Obviously, we've had to make some concessions. You have to be I'd be mindful when I'm around certain people of making sure that I'm doing the right things, because otherwise we don't get to cover the games. So this is a full team effort, not only with the players, the coaching staff, and within the organization, but as media members as well too, doing the right things, making sure we are distancing, or if we're talking to one another, wearing masks, simple things like that, just to make sure that we can continue to do this thing that we all love and enjoy to do.
And that's just the baseline with dealing in a COVID-19 world. But now the new era of Washington football and the face of the franchise is Ron Rivera. Sal, you might know Ron better than any of us, myself included, just by my age alone. How is Ron Rivera primed to be this head coach, not only the team and the franchise needs, but this city, this community in the DMV really needs?
Well, I do know him very well. Covered him as a player, obviously in Philadelphia as a coach. I was there in Charlotte the day that he drafted Cam Newton. So I know him and his family very well. And obviously our prayers from my family to his are sent with all of our hearts. And we want to make sure that Ron gets through this first and foremost. And as Rhianna said, that's pretty impressive, that this team has risen to the occasion for this guy, and it's not surprising when you meet Ron Rivera. He's the kind of guy that you want to follow. He's a real leader of men, and I couldn't think of a better coach to lead these players at this time, even given the circumstances. But boy, oh boy, he's got a great challenge ahead of him. I mean, you gotta coach a football team in the middle of a pandemic while you're going through chemotherapy, man.
Yeah, yes, it's going to be very, very difficult. But he also has to make some hard decisions, and some of those, chief among them, was letting go of Adrian Peterson, the veteran running back who led the team in rushing the last 2 seasons, in favor of these young running backs. Julie, Rhiannon, you have seen these guys play. Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, Peyton Barber, Bryce Love making a comeback. How impactful do you think these guys can be for Ron Rivera and Scott Turner's offense with a lot of motion? Let's start with Rhiannon on that.
Well, I think that now they have players, and this is something I asked Ron, is that was the fit not necessarily right with Adrian Peterson? I mean, he was somebody that he pointed out in the team circle and said the day after he announced his cancer diagnosis, look at this guy, look at Thomas Davis and how they conduct themselves at practice. And then if you do those things, you might have a career that looks anything like these two guys who eventually probably will live in the Hall of Fame. But now you have a guy in Antonio Gibson. When he's out there on the field, you really don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you that I've seen Antonio Gibson run between the tackles on plays where I thought he might catch a pass out of the backfield, and there were times where I thought he was lining up to take a pass, and they both pushing him to get a handoff. That's why they have him, J.D. McKissick, Bryce Love, Peyton Barber on the team right now, because defenses have to guess and they have to wonder. This is something that we heard so much of when, I'll give an example, Jack Del Rio came on, is that there was a lot of pre-snap confusion with the defense last year. This is the kind of confusion that this offense is trying to create for opposing defenses this year, so that they don't know what's coming, because the less that they know, the more the offense can produce. And in a year where a lot of fans, I think, aren't expecting a great deal from this offense, that element of surprise does work in this team's favor with this running back group.
And the guy will be handing off the football, Dwayne Haskins. He's going to be the starter week 1 against the Eagles. Julie, you've watched him mature from his high school days at Bullis to now being the starter for the Burgundy and Gold. Do you sense that he's ready for this opportunity? Ron Rivera challenged him in the offseason, and now he gets his chance in week 1 to prove his coach made the right decision to make him the starter.
I do. He took that challenge to heart, and he did everything that coach asked of him. Coach said, look, I want you to pay attention to your social media. What are you putting out there? How are you being involved in the community? Are you in your playbook? Are you taking care of your body? And it really challenged him to not just physically take that next step, to mentally take that next step in the game, but also in the maturity that he has. He took that to it, and he really did. When you talk to different players now, they say, you see he's in command of the huddle. He's carrying himself a little bit differently. He's making quick decisions, and that's really going to be the most important thing from what Rhiannon was saying, how Scott Turner wants to run this offense, is he's got to be able to make those decisions quickly, because as Sal Powell can tell you, this defense is going to be coming at him fast and hard. So you're going to be able to see how that offensive line holds up and how well he can handle having to be forced into those decisions. But he was named a team captain, and that is voted on by the team. Coach didn't give that to him. So if you asked, did he step up to being the leader? Yes, he did.
Checks all the boxes for Ron Rivera. Now he has to go and show it on the field. Let's flip to the other side of the football because Chase Young is probably the most interesting person to watch on this football team for all of the reasons, just all of the reasons. But Sal, the Eagles' offensive line is one of the best in the NFL, and now they're going to see this guy, the Predator, coming straight for them. Do you anticipate Chase Young is going to have a bit of trouble in his first start as an NFL player?
I don't, but I can tell you in talking to the coaches and the players that the guy who really gives them nightmares is Ryan Kerrigan. Ryan Kerrigan has always eaten this Eagles team alive. Lane Johnson will tell you that Ryan Kerrigan is one of his toughest opponents, toughest matchups. And having Chase Young on the field only makes Ryan Kerrigan that much more of a lethal weapon, in my view. I think the Washington Redskins have one of the best front fours on paper in the National Football League. They have speed, they have power, they have want to. And with a guy like Jack Del Rio, you know that they're going to be buttoned up. This is going to be a gap control, completely a gap control defense under Del Rio and Rivera. Alignment and assignment football. And then you're going to let Chase Young just go get the quarterback. You know, he's got a great speed rush. We saw that at OSU. And that's going to be a problem for sure. You've got Lane Johnson, who is been having problems with injuries on one side, and you have Jason Peters, who's 38 years old, on the other, and just recently moved from right guard to left tackle. So I just think this is the number one issue facing the Eagles in this game.
And let's get it started with this Take Your Pick segment, our first segment of the Unfiltered Show's debut. Terry McLaurin versus Darius Slay. Terry McLaurin came on to the scene as a rookie, and now he's considered one of the best wide receivers in the league. He tore up the Eagles last year, going for 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 10 receptions. Is that going to change against Darius Slay, the new corner from Detroit?
Well, when they matched up against one another, when the Washington football team played the Detroit Lions for 19 snaps, they both had their moments. But I think that Slay is going to have his hands full with McLaurin. McLaurin is a top-level talent. He's got great quick step right off the line of scrimmage. He has a burst of speed that is very deceptive. He has tremendous hands. When the ball gets there, he will catch it. The Eagles should have gotten him. He should be in an Eagles uniform. There's no question in my mind. I mean, the fact that they missed him is unbelievable. He can play. And I just think that Slay is going to have his hands full with McLaurin in this game. And there's one area on offense that I think the Eagles are pretty concerned about.
Yeah. Dwayne Haskins tried to change the nickname from Scary Terry to Turbo Terry, and with the speed he's going to put on Sunday, that may become the new normal for Terry McLaurin. Moving on in the next Take Your Pick, Washington D-line versus Philadelphia offensive line. Sal, you already mentioned that a little bit, so let's transition over to Rhiannon Walker. What do you like in that matchup with the front four of the Washington football team against the front five of the Eagles offense?
One of the things that I noticed about the Eagles offensive line is how many injuries they've had. You have a lot of starters that are no longer there. I believe Andre Dillard, there was an injury with him. Brooks is also not playing right now, which is part of the reason that Jason Peters moved from right guard over to left tackle. Obviously, he's very familiar with it, but he is 38 years old. And as good as he is, they have a lot of youth there. Montez Sweat, extremely young. Chase Young, extremely young. Ryan Anderson, who led the team with 5 forced fumbles last year. He even had a multi-forced fumble game against the Eagles. I think he had 3 last time they played each other. So that is something that I sit there and say, I don't know if the way the Eagles lineup right now is coming in a little bit injured can handle just some of the depth that they have there. They do have Daron Payne. Jonathan Allen is a full participant with his knee injury that he suffered 2 weeks or so ago. Matt Ioannidis is being factored in. Tim Settle. I could go on. There's just so much. And to what Sal said is that Jack Del Rio runs a tight ship. They're going to have great gap control. And part of the reason that they like Jack Del Rio and what he's been doing so far in Washington is that they have so much flexibility to just be aggressive and get after the quarterback. And with a guy like Carson Wentz, I believe he's coming off a soft tissue injury. That is something that concerns me there. So I think that Washington's defensive line has the edge here, if for no other reason than there are a number of injuries on the Eagles' offensive line.
Let's go to Carson Wentz. Like you mentioned there, Rhiannon. He has had a great career against the Washington football team, Julie. He has torn them up. 6 touchdowns, 579 passing yards, almost 70% completion percentage. And this is an unproven Washington football team secondary led by Kendall Fuller right now, who has been struggling to find the practice field. He was able to get out there a little bit this week. Is that a concern for you for this team?
Yes, very much so. It should be a concern for them on all aspects. Yeah, you have that defensive front that can come around and will be pressuring him, but Carson Wentz is one of the best at extending plays. I think Pro Football Focus ranked him as 3rd overall of getting plays there longer and still managing to get it out there and have things happen on the field where you think there's nothing that can be done. They also get Ronald Darby over from the Eagles, but Sal, you might have to check me on this one. I'm told that you can beat him on double moves, which means Deshaun Jackson might be able to get the better of him, as well as they're out there with Zach Ertz. So we'll see how that matches up. You want to see how well the secondary is going to do, you'll be able to find out with Carson Wentz, because he'll be on the run, but he can do that. He can make throws on the run. We'll see quickly if the secondary can hold up.
A new papa with his daughter Haley Jane. He's going to have to try and figure out the time to get that film session in. But Sal, Julie mentioned Deshaun Jackson. He loved playing against the Eagles when he was with the Washington football team, and vice versa when he came back to Philly. Is that something that he's really primed for again? Does he always circle this game as something to go out and have a big performance?
Well, he's coming back from an injury, and it was an injury that I think was pretty debilitating for him last year, and he really struggled to come back in the off season. It was a groin injury, and I think it really took a lot away from him, and I think it really hurt his confidence. So we'll have to see. I'm anxious to see how Deshaun does in this first game back. It's pretty interesting that Julie mentioned about Carson Wentz. I think what you'll see, Chip, in this particular game, given what Rhiannon laid out, they will get after Carson Wentz, and I think they're going to do some fast distribution of the football to try to keep the Washington football team's pass rush away from Carson Wentz. I think that's the key thing. Get the ball out quickly. So I think it's back to the future for this team. They led the league in 508 2 tight end sets last year. I think that's what you're going to see. 2 tight end sets and a cloud of dust. Get the ball out quickly in the middle of the field. Try to control the football between the hash marks and make Washington scramble after the ball is delivered. I think that's going to be the key.
We're going to get this game predictions on Sunday. Rhiannon, let's start with you. What do you predict the game going?
I actually have this in my next story too. I'm suggesting that I think Washington will win this game. I want to say 28-20. I think that this is going to be a very close game. Last year was a very close game, and there were some near misses that we can obviously look back on. Obviously, Terry McLaurin had that big touchdown with Case Keenum the first time, but we all remember that second one where he was wide open and Case Keenum completely overthrew him. Deshaun Jackson had a huge touchdown that obviously turned the tide of the game, but I think one of the things is the Eagles do have a number of injuries. Alshon Jeffrey, I believe, is also dealing with some injuries right now, in addition to Deshaun Jackson, Jalen Reagor, their first-round pick. I do wonder, Zach Ertz right now is having the contract negotiations. I wonder if he'll be able to help take over the 2 tight end sets that Sal's talking about in the middle of the field with the linebacker group. I just have a lot of questions there as it relates to, will this banged-up Eagles offense be able to keep up with this very stout defensive front with Washington? And I think that this is one of those games where they will come out and they'll punch him in the mouth, as Scott Turner suggested that they will do yesterday when we talked to them.
Oh, you're going to put it on me. I hate predictions, by the way. I'm going to go.
Put you on the spot.
And I'm going to do it just because of this, because the Eagles have had Washington's number for the last 6 times that we have played. You mentioned Carson Wentz against them. He's won the last 5 contests we've had against them. And I know he's been dealing with a little bit of injuries as well, but sure, he'll be ready to go. I'm going to say Washington in this one, but I'll say it's by a field goal. I don't know the score. Just say it's going to be by a field goal.
That works for us. Sal, your prediction?
Philadelphia wins, but they don't cover. 20-16. I think this will be a low-scoring game. From what I've seen around the NFL this summer, Chip, offenses are struggling. They're struggling to have chemistry on the offensive line. You can't fake football, and that's basically what they've been trying to do. I think what you'll see for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the NFL season, it's almost like a preseason.
As you'll remember, the Eagles got that backdoor cover in the second game last year. Made a lot of fans happy. Let's get to our season predictions. Washington football team, final record. Let's start with Sal.
I think this team has 6 or 7 wins in it. I looked at their schedule. Their schedule's not easy. And it all depends on one thing, right? Dwayne Haskins. Will he turn the football over? If he doesn't, they will have a fighting chance to win a lot of football games.
Julie.
I'm going to go with a little bit of a different approach, but I'm going to stay basically in the same numbers that Sal had. When Ron Rivera took over for Carolina, they had 2 wins. The next year they finished with 6. So he's taking over a team that had 3 wins, so I say they will finish with 7.
Rhiannon, I'm not going to spoil your season preview article, so let the people know.
Oh, I'll do it myself. I did it yesterday. I said 7-9, and I said it could be 6-10, but I do agree with both Julie and Sal that it does come down to Dwayne Haskins. It also comes down to that left side of the offensive line that is completely brand new this year as well, too.
So Rhiannon could be in play for NFC East champion depending on how it plays out. Eagles barely made it at that record, too. Who wins the NFC East this year? Julie, let's start with you.
I'm going to say it's going to go to the Cowboys this year.
Ooh, I don't think Washington football team fans are going to like that. Rhiannon.
Yikes. I'm going to have to say the same thing. They have so many offensive weapons. They just got better offensively. It's kind of crazy.
Dak Prescott's contract here. Well, we thought it would be. Sal.
Oh, I think the Eagles are going to win the division. I think that it sets up for them to have 11 or 12 wins. I looked at their schedule and, the bottom line is, Chip, if Carson Wentz is healthy, this team wins a lot of games. If he gets hurt, they don't. That's it.
Case closed there. All right. Super Bowl winner. Premature predictions. Chiefs won it last year. 49ers made it to the dance. So who's there and who wins?
Who do you want to start?
Go with you, Rhiannon.
Go, Rhiannon, please.
I should have known. Okay.
You shouldn't have spoke up.
I played myself. And so in my predictions, actually, this was for tomorrow. I say that it's going to be Kansas City versus the Dallas Cowboys, and I say the Kansas City Chiefs repeat as the Super Bowl champions.
Patrick Mahomes, he's a $500 million man. Julie.
I kind of can't argue against that. I like it, but I'm going to go with the 49ers. They were so close. Kyle Shanahan, I think he gets his day.
Sal?
Well, it's really tough to pick the Super Bowl winners so early. I like to go with my final 4 teams, which I customarily do.
We'll allow it.
I think it will be Eagles at Bucks in the NFC Championship game.
Ooh.
And I think it will be Patriots at Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And as a reporter, having done this for 25 years, you get to root for yourself. You can't root for a team, but you can root for yourself. You can root for the best story. And to me, the best story is Belichick versus Brady at Raymond James Stadium in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's going to make Florida happy, right, Julie? That's the match made in heaven in the Super Bowl.
I was about to say, the second I saw you put the Bucks there, I'm like, and the Patriots like, I see what you're doing. The football gods would love that.
As a sexy Super Bowl, Sal, I would love to see that. All right, MVP. Let's get to it with Sal. You just keep the momentum going. You're crushing it right now, man.
I think it's going to be TB12. I think in the end, Tom Brady just has the season for the ages. Sports and the NFL needs a great story like that. And, he's Lazarus. He will rise and become the champion again.
Nice Batman reference. Julie.
Yeah, well, that passing game he's walking into is one of the best. They just have to have somebody that can get it to the right guys and not the wrong ones. My goodness. Brady's the one to do that for sure. But I'm going to go with Pat Mahomes. Look, he could easily have been that last season, but Lamar had him on it. But I don't see any reason why he should be slowing down at all. I say Mr. Mahomes gets it.
Rhiannon, finish it off.
I think that it's going to be Dak Prescott. In a contract year, he didn't get the long-term deal that he was looking for. He's playing on this exclusive franchise tag right now. He has everything to prove. And like I said, I think this is one of the teams that ends up in the Super Bowl as well, too. So I think he becomes the first player on the franchise tag to win the MVP. And also, by the way, I made a mistake. I should have said the Baltimore Ravens. I had the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC game and the Ravens winning the Super Bowl. So please forgive me for that mistake.
It's all good because we saved the last segment for the hot takes, and I love it. Sal Paolantonio of ESPN, NFL reporter covering the Philadelphia Eagles. You can check him this Sunday, 4 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time on the NFL Matchup Show on ESPN. Julie Donaldson, Senior Vice President of Media and Content of the Washington Football Team, and Rhiannon Walker of The Athletic covering the Washington Football Team beat. I'm Chip Brierre. Thanks to our guests for being with us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. We will see you next week for episode 2 of The Beats. Stay classy.